Hey, my name's Peter, and today I'm trying out a new art form. Well, new to me at least. Something I haven't tried called rug hooking. Okay, I've gotten started a little bit already, and we're gonna continue with this today. Here's my goal. Here's why this appeals to me. It's a visual art. Check. I like that. I can make shapes and lines. Check, check. And then I've always enjoyed making textures with my drawings. Usually I do this by doing like hatch marks, but here the textures I make can be tactile. I can feel them, right? Look at this. Basically how this works is, well, it's called rug hooking. Sorry, I don't know why I'm calling it rug pulling. That's something totally different. You have this little hook tool, right? And the key part of it is it has this little thing that goes up and down. So when you push it through the cloth, I'm using something called monk's cloth. Here's what it looks like on the bottom. I hook the yarn into it, and then, so basically this is just a bunch of loops pulled through the cloth like this, right? So I guess if you really wanted to, you could go through. I think I just did it by accident, actually. I pulled on it too hard. You could go through and just unpull it. I just undid a bunch of work by pulling on the bottom. So now I want to continue, but the stuff I was working with was just some like test yarn I bought on Amazon. The next stage of this, I want to go to the store and buy some other materials to sew into this, some other yarns of different colors, different textures, different sizes, right? To go ahead and add some more variety to what I've already got right here. I went to a local creative reuse store called Reconsidered Goods, a store I really like going to sometimes just to get inspiration for ideas and projects, because they have just the most random things that you would never consider using for projects, like barrels and bins full of like keyboard keys or bottle caps or little tabs of this or that, scraps of this, and it's just a very fun, inspiring place. And so I grabbed some more yarn there. The scraps I started out with were just kind of, well, they weren't scraps. I ordered like a pack of yarn off Amazon, and it was all the same kind of bright colors, very standard size of yarn, and I wanted some different colors. You know how yarn can come with little specks in it, gradations of color, some yarn with weird textures, some thinner yarn, some thicker yarn. That way I could work this into my piece. But before we see where I went with all that, let's talk about Squarespace briefly, who makes it possible for me to try all these different art mediums. They have amazing tools available to you right now to make your own website and then get it hosted online. It can be your own www.whateveryouwant.com, a real professional polished website. You can put whatever you want on there, make it look however you want. They have templates to get you started, but then you can customize these templates endlessly. They have this thing called the Fluid Engine where you can just drag and drop certain elements and they all fit together perfectly. And you can do cool things like sync up your social media, because, for example, I post all my drawings on Instagram, but then they can also pop right up on my website as well. Plus, you can look at the options for membership sections and e-commerce. So go to squarespace.com for a free trial. And then when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/PeterDraws for 10% off your first website or domain, okay? So this is where I started. I bought something called monk's cloth, which, according to my brief research before starting this project, is one of the desirable cloths for doing rug hooking. And then I also bought this frame, which along the edges of the frame has these strips of these very spiky metal things, kind of like the spiky parts of Velcro, except it's just sharp metal spikes, tiny sharp metal spikes, which you can stretch the edges of the monk cloth over and just keep stretching it a little bit more, and it keeps the monk cloth taut through the middle of the frame, right? You could also use, what are those, like embroidery hoops? I think you could use that too, but this was a little bit bigger. I think this is a 16 by 16 frame, and it worked pretty good. But I might try something like an embroidery hoop in the future, if it, because those are a little bit smaller, less cumbersome. One of the nice things about this kind of project, one of this kind of hobby, is I wanted something at first that I could watch TV while I worked on it. And for about the first half of this, I think this took like 30 hours. It took a long time for me to do this whole thing. I'm not exactly sure, but I was like, yeah, it'd be nice to be able to watch TV while I did something. It'd be nice to be able to sit on the couch. And so I did, because I didn't have to work at my desk. I could just hold this thing in my lap, have my yarn piled up beside me. And yeah, I watched like 5 movies while I did this. Eventually, in the second half of the project, I was just listening to an audiobook on my phone. And that's why in some of the footage I wasn't looking up and down all the time. But yeah, it was nice to sit on the couch, be able to watch movies. It's a good kind of hobby or creative project you can do it anywhere, especially if you took like an embroidery hoop and just one piece of yarn you had a little bag next to you. You could do it almost anywhere, right? You could do it in public transit, in the car, as long as you're not driving, or at the doctor's office while you're waiting. It's a nice mobile thing, kind of like I went to a concert, a Mozart concert, with my girlfriend the other day, and we were in the second row back from the stage, and in the front row, right in front of us, there was a lady there with her husband, I think, and I guess maybe her husband dragged her along to it, and she was just sitting there knitting through the whole concert. Maybe that's just, like I often tell people I like doodling in school. It doesn't mean I wasn't absorbing the information. Maybe she just needs something to do with her hands. Maybe if she wasn't knitting, she wouldn't have enjoyed the concert as much. It doesn't mean she didn't like it, okay? It was just kind of fun to see that. Like, yeah, there are fun things you can take like this to do, especially like some of these fiber arts like knitting, crocheting, maybe this rug hooking. You don't need to be staring at it all the time. Kind of like, a pencil, like a sketchbook and pen, takes a little bit more of my attention. It's still nice and portable. I think that's partly why I got into drawing in a sketchbook with a pen, because I could take it anywhere, work on it at any point in time, pull it, just whip it out and just start scribbling. But yeah, there is something nice about this. I really started falling in love with this little project, especially after I went on that trip to the Creative Reuse store and started incorporating the wider variety of yarns. Some of them were very feathery, some of them had like lots of weird little strings hanging off, and some of them were just thicker, chunkier threads that added both a visual variety and, when you run your fingers over it, provide a tactile variety. And I tried leaving some of the tufts, some of the little loops, very short and small and tight, and then creating some bigger tufts as well, kind of like longer, maybe kind of like a golf course. You know how there's putting greens, there's fairways, there's the rough areas, and then there's even like freaking trees, right? I tried to kind of include all of these elements for visual and tactile variety. And more than the length, you can incorporate things like color, right? It was just fun to be able to work with so many different aspects, and working with the different lengths of the little loops I was making. I felt like I was kind of making it was almost a quasi-sculptural work as well. When I was little, my dad had this hobby where he would make these extremely precise, delicate pieces of fiber art. I think it was called needlepoint. And he would make these delicate garden scenes and then frame them and put them up around the house. I still remember that. But I will say I'm a little afraid, okay? Because when I finished this piece, ultimately, it was not finished in the sense that my art, all my little loops of yarn were just sitting there on a rough-edged piece of cloth, right? I was looking on the internet for supplies for doing rug hooking. They had other little supplies that I didn't order, like the hem, like little strips of cloth for hemming these things. Like there's a million different things you could do with this thing that I made. For example, you could turn it into one side of a throw pillow, or obviously it's called rug hooking, so it could be a rug, but I don't really feel like walking all over it because it would just get smushed really flat. But that could be a cool effect as well. Some people hang rugs on walls. It could be hung on a wall. And of course I could make a rough, one thing I've thought of is making a rough frame for it and stretching the canvas, stretching the cloth back around the frame and stapling it to it, kind of like stretching a canvas. People do that, and then would it be like a piece of fluffy fiber art I could hang on the wall. Another thing I thought of doing is getting like a canvas or a denim jacket and somehow sewing this onto the back. And it would be a cool piece of clothing, kind of a statement piece, but it would obviously also be a little bit delicate because every time you wear a piece of clothing, is it piece of clothes, piece of cloth? Every time you wear something, there's a risk it'll get a little bit more worn out, right? Especially if something happens to it and you have to wash it. Obviously this would never withstand being thrown in the washing machine. I don't think it's a strictly wash by hand type of thing. But what I'm afraid of is that in my efforts, with my desire to do something with this piece of art, to further finish it or put it on something, I'm going to slowly get sucked into and deeper into the sewing hobby, which is something I've felt on the periphery of my mind for a long time, but I'm just a little bit afraid of it because it seems like a big, deep, bottomless hobby. I feel like I could just accumulate so much stuff with this hobby. I would want to just start hoarding thread, yarn, and cloth scraps galore. And of course I feel like I would have to get a sewing machine. And I have a table. Look, I have a table in mind that I could dedicate to this hobby, but it also already has a bunch of other junk on it, so I would have to purge. I'd have to do at least a one table purge of other junk that I got from other hobbies and other projects, which is probably good, right? Because I can't keep it all, because otherwise I would just have to start. I would be wading knee deep in stuff, and I don't want it to get quite that bad. But you know what I mean? You ever felt a little bit curious about a hobby, but then a little bit afraid about how deep it could go, about all the peripherals, all the things that you would want to get into? How cool it could get, and how deeply you'd want to get involved with it. Like, if you wanted to get into sewing, you wouldn't want to just get a needle and thread, right? Right? You'd at least want a couple of needles, a couple of pieces of thread. I mean, maybe even more than that, right? Yeah. I mean, I've already thought. One time I looked up the pattern for how to make a blazer, and I realized a blazer is probably not where to start because it was far more complicated than I thought. Maybe the better place to start as far as making a piece of clothing is like a pair of pants or a shirt, because those can be a little bit more loose and forgiving. But it would be cool to make clothes. It would. That's art you can wear. I mean, that's cool. I like the idea of it, but I'm hesitant. All right, see y'all later. Thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know what you think about this fluffy stuff and what other fiber arts you would recommend. I got the idea. I will admit, I got the idea of this. I asked AI, okay, because I knew there's cool fiber arts out there, and I just wanted a suggestion. Here's what I asked it. I said, what are some good kinds of fiber arts, such as quilting, needlepoint, cross-stitch, knitting, that allows for high levels customization? I want to be able to create my own visual designs and images. I like the idea of having something to work on while I watch TV. And then the result is both big and tactile and colorful with cool textures. And the rug hooking is one thing it suggested. It also suggested tapestry weaving, which don't you need like a loom for that? I'm guessing you need a loom. A loom seems even crazier than buying a sewing machine, even though I don't hate the idea. That I think I would need its whole room dedicated for a loom for tapestry weaving, unless it's less involved than I'm guessing. It also suggested punch needle embroidery. Is that kind of the same thing as rug hooking? I'm not sure. It also suggested intarsia knitting. Never heard of that before. And needlepoint canvas work, which is, I think that has like little tiny stitches. That could be interesting too. Anyways, all right, goodbye everyone. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there. All right, goodbye. Love you. All right, here it is, the final result. It's still just sitting here on my couch. Haven't figured out what to do with it yet, but I still like it. It's still beautiful to me. Really like it. It's great to touch. It's also soft, but there's great variations of textures. Like this part feels different than this part, than this part. Like this is a very rough yarn here. This is very soft, and this is like somewhere in the middle, and then there's this like got nice little tufts to play with. These feel like feathers. It's a crazy yarn right there. And you can just like feel it and run your fingers along the ridges and bumps. Oh yeah. Love it. Oh yeah, I love these. This yarn was crazy. It's kind of like wiry, spindly yarn. Really happy with it. Let me know what y'all think. All right, you guys want to see the back? Boom. That's pretty awesome too. That's its own kind of art right there. It's a little bit more chaotic and sketchy, but it's still sweet. I love that. I'm gonna pull it off the frame now and see what happens. Oh. See, look, these are all the little metal teeth that gripped the cloth. Yeah. There we have it. Pretty cool. It's cool how it bends. It's like, I didn't really think about that before. Love it. Look how thick it is. How much stuff is on the underside. A thick rug. See ya.